killing of Anwar al-Awlaki is considered by the Americans as an enormous coup. However, the elimination of this man raises some very fundamental legal questions, and particularly in the United States. The killing of Anwar al-Awlaki is considered by the Americans as an enormous coup. After all, he was the brains behind the operations of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and the death came just at the moment when the situation inside Yemen is becoming critical and the American authorities are getting very worried about having someone like al-Awlaki, who had the ability to speak fluent English, who had the ability, therefore, to play both the propaganda war as well as organizing warfare on the ground. However, the killing of this individual raises some very fundamental problems about the U.S. legal system. Whether the Americans like it or not, the reality is that al-Awlaki, partly because of an accident of birth, can be considered an American citizen. And the fact that an American citizen could be effectively executed without due process by an executive decision taken apparently by the US President himself should give rise to a great deal of worries. Secondly, the drone attack in which al-Awlaki was killed also killed a number of other people, including another individual against whom there were no clear indications that he was involved in terrorist attacks. One of al-Awlaki's assistants' biggest problem was that he was a rather skillful manipulator of the internet and produced the online version of the magazine of the organization. That in itself should not be an argument for his killing. What I find astounding is that there was very little discussion about this in the United States, and that the memorandum of the Department of Justice in Washington, which apparently found the legal justification why an American citizen could simply be snuffed out, as it were, by US troops, has not been published in its entirety. What we have is effectively an argument that in self-defense, US forces can actually kill a US citizen who has gone rogue or has become a traitor to American security interests. Well, the argument may be correct, but I would have wished to have seen it in writing, and I would have wished to have seen it tested in American courts. Sadly, none of these things are likely to happen. So, in a way, the killing of al-Awlaki, which has been presented as a great success, actually encapsulates a lot of the problems with the entire drone activity, which has gone up in leaps and bounds since President Obama took over in Washington. Which is, number one, it's a blunt instrument. It is one that does not discriminate. It is one that is activated from thousands of miles away by operators in the United States. And although the Americans claim with some justification that they are taking care when they use UAVs against targets, the reality still is that some people who may not have borne the same kind of blame as al-Awlaki has done, ended up being killed at the same time. The reality is that the use of the UAVs has proved to be quite successful in decapitating al-Qaeda, both in the tribal areas on the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and in the Arabian Peninsula. So the chances are very high that the operations will continue, and that they will continue as long as they allow authorities in Washington to claim that they are making some progress in killing off some of the high valuable targets, particularly since Washington is increasingly shaky in its control of the developments in both Yemen and Pakistan. I cannot see how these operations will stop. However, there are ways of getting around the issue. There are ways of imposing some order on what is otherwise a very disorderly kind of operation. I cannot understand, for instance, why they continue to be operated by the CIA and are therefore outside the normal chain of military command with its responsibility. I think what needs to be said quite clearly is that the use of UAVs may be justified, that there are understandable reasons why the Americans resort to it, that UAVs are like other weapons, but that the question of how they discriminate between combatants and non-combatants and who is accountable for those operations needs to be made much more clear, and that the chain of command for the operations needs to be clear, obvious, and explicit to the American public.